Welcome to Lost in Revision. All of our content is public domain, literature, fairy tales, and folklore. Our goal is to at least break even to cover our expenses, so any support that you can offer to help us reach that goal helps keep this podcast going and you entertained. All of our music is by Nathan Hubble and is used with his permission. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to Season 3 of Lost in Revision, brought to you by Indigenous Peoples Day. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm here as always with two of my favorite humans, Angel and Polly. How are you today, Angel?
Well, for how much I've been working lately, I'm doing remarkably well. We are 9 weeks into the school year, and I still love almost all of my students.
Almost.
Okay, I kind of love all of them, but I have to work harder at it with some. Oh, they found out that I do a podcast, and they wanted to know which one. I never advertise to my students because that just seems a little unethical. However, a few are trying to be detectives and see if they can find it. Just in case any of them do, I'll just say, hello, my lovelies. Well done.
I advertise to my customers all the time. Any chance I get. Always talking about it.
I think yours doesn't have ethical repercussions.
So long as I'm not like caught on video in my Waffle House uniform.
It's true. So, how about you, Polly? How's your day going?
Well, I start school next week, so that'll be fun. I'm going for a business administration this time.
I have 2 degrees in business administration with a concentration in human resources. I didn't get either one until I was already a director and in charge of federal facilities because I like to do my entire life backwards.
I think I'm going into medical administration.
Ooh, that's awesome.
I hear there's a lot of telework stuff in that.
Yeah.
I'm very pro going back to school.
I hate school. I've never been a fan. As a neurodivergent troublemaker, that is.
I like learning stuff, but I don't know. I'm ambivalent about the certifications and whatnot.
I love school. I just don't like the school system.
Oh, true.
Nat, I have so many of you in my classes.
My condolences to you and to them.
We make life interesting.
Oh, yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the history and culture of this story?
Well, this story got all over Europe. We got France, Italy, Germany, most popularly Charles Perrault and the Brothers Grimm, with some minor variations. In Grimm's version, Red's mother warns Red strictly to stay on the path, and in the end, she's saved by a hunter who cuts open the wolf, pulls out Red and her grandmother, and then replaces the weight of Red and her grandmother in the wolf's stomach with stones, a la the 7 Kids, which is another big bad wolf story that we're not going to get into now. Maybe
like
later.
You wouldn't notice being split open?
Right. I certainly noticed when I had abdominal surgery and something like that.
Looking at the oldest version of the story that I could find was in a collection of Perrault's fairy tales. I ended up having to look up a few terms that were used in this story, and one of them put the entire story in a whole new light. Early in the story, it said, as she was going through the wood, she met with Gaffer Wolf, who had a very great mind to eat her up, but he durst not, because of some faggot makers hard by in the forest. So first, I went and discovered that faggot makers were people who gathered sticks, typically to make brooms. That was somewhat interesting, but then I went searching for the term gaffer wolf and discovered it is a colloquial term for an old man. Apparently, in some tales, Gaffer Wolf will also refer to werewolves. When I was little, I was always very confused by the wolf being able to talk and the little girl not blinking an eye or thinking anything strange about a talking wolf. But this makes so much more sense. Also, ew, with the creepy old man vibe the story had after knowing how the big bad wolf was originally described. Ugh,
For real.
Ugh, that does add a different element to the story. I mean, a talking wolf is no big deal. It's a fairy story. Of course the wolf is talking. I can honestly say, as a child, I would be way more likely to approach a random wolf in the woods than a creepy old man. I would not need a warning about that.
Yeah, men in the woods always creep me out more than any animals.
Team bear.
Although now I also want to dive into some good werewolf stories.
We may have a recurring wolf theme.
Hints for the coming season. So let's move on to the reading of the story, and then we can discuss it after.
Little Red Riding Hood, edited by Watty Piper. There was once a sweet little maid who lived with her father and mother in a pretty little cottage at the edge of the village. At the further end of the wood was another pretty cottage, and in it lived her grandmother. Everybody loved this little girl. Her grandmother perhaps loved her most of all, and gave her a great many pretty things. Once she gave her a red cloak with a hood, which she always wore, so people called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother said, "Put on your things and go to see your grandmother. She has been ill. Take along this basket for her. I have put in it eggs, butter, and cake, and other dainties." It was a bright and sunny morning. Red Riding Hood was so happy that at first she wanted to dance through the wood. All around her grew pretty wildflowers, which she loved so well, and she stopped to pick a bunch for her grandmother. Little Red Riding Hood wandered from her path and was stooping to pick a flower, when from behind her a gruff voice said, "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood." Little Red Riding Hood turned around and saw a great big wolf. But Little Red Riding Hood did not know what a wicked beast the wolf was, so she was not afraid. "What have you got in that basket, Little Red Riding Hood?" "Eggs and butter and cake, Mr. Wolf." "Where are you going with them, Little Red Riding Hood?" "I'm going to my grandmother who is ill, Mr. Wolf." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "Along that path, past the wild rose bushes, then through the gate at the end of the wood, Mr. Wolf." Then Mr. Wolf again said, "Good morning," and set off, and Little Red Riding Hood again went in search of wildflowers. At last he reached the porch covered with flowers, and knocked at the door of the cottage. "Who is there?" called the grandmother. "Little Red Riding Hood," said the wicked wolf. "Press the latch, open the door, and walk in," said the grandmother. The wolf pressed the latch and walked in where the grandmother lay in bed. He made one jump at her, but she jumped out of bed into a closet. Then the wolf put on the cap which she had dropped, and crept under the bedclothes. In a short while Little Red Riding Hood knocked at the door and walked in, saying, "Good morning, grandmother. I have brought you eggs, butter, and cake, and here is a bunch of flowers I gathered in the wood." As she came nearer the bed, she said, "What big ears you have, grandmother." "All the better to hear you with, my dear." "And what big eyes you have, grandmother." "All the better to see you with, my dear." "Oh, but grandmother, what a big nose you have." "All the better to smell you with, my dear." "But grandmother, what a big mouth you have." "All the better to eat you up with, my dear," he said as he sprang at Little Red Riding Hood. Just at that moment Little Red Riding Hood's father was passing the cottage and heard her scream. He rushed in and with his axe chopped off Mr. Wolf's head. Everybody was happy that Little Red Riding Hood had escaped the wolf. Then Little Red Riding Hood's father carried her home, and they lived happily ever after.
And we're back. So, what was your favorite part or version of this story?
I have to say my favorite big bad wolf is Johnny Depp's from Into the Woods. And I also love the part where afterwards Red has a beautiful wolfskin cloak to replace her red one.
That's nice. But, we did a couple of traveling children's operas at Southeastern when I was there, and Red Riding Hood was one of the shows that we did. The baritone who played the wolf opened the show as the narrator and sat on stage putting on his makeup while singing a very complicated aria that ended with him turning and proclaiming himself the wolf as he put on his ears. The kids always screeched as he growled at them at the end of the aria. So even though the world may not know him, I will claim Robert Den as my favorite big bad wolf. He had an amazing voice.
Nice.
Wolf Den.
I hadn't even thought of that before. But my favorite version of the Red Riding Hood story has got to be Hoodwinked. I absolutely love that movie. I always found the way they twisted everything and how the story changed so much from everyone's different perspective to be so entertaining. And I just loved Granny being a secret extreme sports enthusiast. Though Kirk, the aspiring actor trying to find his inner woodsman for the audition and not being at all the rough and tough lumberjack hero of the typical version, just made me so happy. I loved him joining a yodeling troupe.
Aw, he's a lumberjack and he's okay even if he does drink tea all day.
He sleeps all night and he works all day. Well, my favorite version is the song.
Hey, I'm pretty sure we are thinking of two different songs when you said that. Because mine is from the Groovy Ghoulies cartoon. It's Where You Going, Little Ghoul? I'm off to see my mother, and I wish to see no other. I like it because at the end of it, she has a book of karate in her bag of goodies and just wipes the floor with the vamp who's stalking her through the woods.
Okay, so Angel did put a link to that in the show notes, and I went and listened to it, and I let Polly listen along, and it is hilarious. So everybody listening, go look it up. Maybe I'll put a link in the show notes if I can. Because it's great. It's very cute, and you were totally right about the ending. It cracked me up. But the song that I love is by Sam the Sham. And when you listen to it as an adult, it's not as cute and fun as it was when you were a kid. But I still just love the way it is sung.
You're everything that a big bad wolf would want.
Ow! I mean, bad.
Bah.
God, I love that song.
Yep, it's a fantastic song.
I don't know. I don't think it hits any differently now as an adult than it did when I was a kid, because it's like he wasn't a successful predator. You know, he's like stalking this girl down the street and she's like, whatever, you know? And he's like, come on, baby. And she's like, whatever. And he's like, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that makes it hit a little bit less fun, is that it's about catcalling, really. And that
Unsuccessful catcalling, though. He fails.
well, what catcalling is successful? Catcalling is not a successful endeavor. Any guys listening to
That's
this
true.
that would think that
Yes,
catcalling would
not.
work,
Nobody likes
here's a lesson. It doesn't work.
It doesn't.
it. We know you're a wolf. We do not think you're a sheep.
We know you're what Angel mentioned earlier. So, what is your least favorite part or version? As a kid, I always thought of the wolf as an animal instead of a pest in the other sense. And I always disliked that the poor animal was killed for doing just what animals do.
It's so much nicer to think of the wolf as a human predator who gets his comeuppance than as an animal.
Yeah.
Well, in the version that I read, I was very sad to see that there was no lumberjack hero. Both Granny and the little girl got eaten by the wolf, and that was it. And Red getting into bed with the gaffer wolf was the ickiest of icks. Right after all the, what great teeth you have, the wolf says, that is to eat thee up. And then the wicked wolf eats her all up, the end. No hero, no happy ending. And I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, it doesn't sound fun.
No. The Watty Piper version that I read had Red's father as a savior rather than a random woodcutter. So we get to redeem fathers in this one. The wolf is a creeper and the father is the hero. And everyone was happy that Red was safe from the wolf because she was so beautiful and everybody loved her so. So no victim blaming. So that's a win. Sorry, I think this is my most favorite part instead of my least favorite.
And what were the original lessons that you think this story was trying to convey?
It's pretty clearly a stranger danger message. Don't talk to strangers. Stay on the path. Mind your own business and trust your instincts. If your gut says that grandma's an imposter, maybe don't get right up next to her to check out her teeth.
In my version, Perrault actually had like a 22-line poem after the wolf ate her all up about the moral of the story. In it, he states that all young misses fair in the fragrant spring of age should be careful about listening to the flattering tongues of wolves, since some enchant and lure like siren songs. No wonder, therefore, 'tis, if overpowered, so many of them has the wolf devoured. The wolf, I say, for wolves too sure they are.
Still sounds like he's talking about strange men in bars for sure.
Oh, yeah, he was not being subtle with it at all.
So what do you think the modern lesson would be?
Yeah, I don't think we need a modern lesson here. I think the original message still stands.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, well, you can also add, the whole pay attention to your surroundings and never, ever hand out personal information to strangers. I mean, in every version I've read, she tells the wolf where Granny lives. Keeping your personal information private is even more important in the digital age. Identity thieves are the new big bad wolves.
Yeah, we may not be wandering around in the woods and encountering wolves anymore. It's rare to actually encounter a wolf, but the story was never about a wolf anyway.
No.
Yeah. It's probably just a spin on the girls need supervision type crap. Don't go out at night without a protector. Oh, and what do we need protecting from? Men? Huh? Who? So, in closing, what do you think happened after the story?
Red's father organized a community watch program with the woodsmen and hedge witches to help protect the youth of the community against any creepy predators lurking in the woods and byways. Red used her experience to teach other young girls about situational awareness and how to protect themselves.
Yeah, well, what happens after this story really depends on which version you're talking about. For the one I read, the best you can hope for is the people gathering sticks in the woods remember the creepy old man talking to Red before she vanished. And then a detective worthy of Columbo status managed to put all the clues together and catch the gaffer wolf before he's able to devour any more little girls. They start the first Red Ribbon campaign to teach girls how to spot silver-tongued wolves and teach them martial arts so they can make short work of any wolves who try to pounce on them.
Those are great. And I adore all of the modern versions that have Red as the hero in her own story. And she always becomes a great hunter and protector. I mean, new media has come up with so many great stories for her. It's like a new trope that she becomes the hero. And I also like when she pairs up with other notable characters like Van Helsing in that one. And I do not remember the name. My brain doesn't work anymore. That's what I think happened after. A guild of heroes run by Little Red Riding Hood.
Well, she could be pretty bossy.
Well, she needed to be. She had to stand up to all those creepy old men wandering around in the woods picking up sticks. I guess that's
the creepy old man wasn't picking up sticks.
He was picking up
the
chicks.
Creepy old man was trying to pick up chicks. Totally different.
Your description at the top was that the gaffers were the old men that were picking up sticks.
No. The faggot makers were the people gathering sticks to make brooms. And because they were there, he didn't attack her in the woods. That's why he went to Grandma's house, was he couldn't do anything with all the other people around.
Oh, he durst not because...
He durst not.
Because the creepy old men can't pick up young girls in a crowd. They have to wait till she's alone.
All right, that makes more sense now. I wasn't being a good reader at the top.
Oh,
I know. I'm disappointed.
Neurodivergent? What?
Spicy.
I'm pretty sure it was
spicy.
I am neurospicy. We are neurospicy. This whole podcast is neurospicy.
So much spice. The spice must flow.
my spice is more salt and sachets. So,
Oh, you're plenty spicy. I just have to edit it out.
You get more beeps than any of us.
Yeah, you're the only one I've ever had to censor. Not the only one. I think I had to edit Polly. But I mean, you're the only one that I've ever had to bleep. And it's been twice. Once per season. We're like an R-rated movie.
Which is hilarious because I'm the one who curses the least in real life.
Yeah. I guess I switch gears whenever I go into podcast mode. Because that ain't me.
And my brain starts getting influenced by hanging out with you, and what spills out of my mouth
because
bleeps.
I'm the best bad influence.
You are.
Thanks for joining us today. Check us out on Patreon. You can help us meet our small goal of breaking even and covering our expenses. Your support helps pay for all of the things that podcasting requires and helps keep this show alive and growing. If you can't afford to support us financially, go give us a good review, subscribe or follow, and share with your friends and family. Feel free to fact check us and offer suggestions to make our show better for you. You can also send us an email at lostinrevisionpodcast@gmail.com.
There's a lot more waiting for us all at the end of the road.